Hey everyone, today we've got an incredible story that dives deep into transformation and resilience. You're going to want to stick around for Lyla Hartwell's astonishing journey after her near-death experience. It will really make you pause and think about life, death, and everything in between. But first, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments. We love seeing where all our viewers are located. And if you're not part of our growing community yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any of the amazing stories we share here. Remember the saying from Rumi, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." So prepare yourself for an enlightening adventure. Hi there, I'm Lyla Hartwell, and I'm 35, soaking up life in Riverview Canyon with my husband, Noah Sinclair, and our son, Leo. Before all the wild stuff happened, I had what you might call a pretty standard life. I worked as an interior designer, which I totally loved, and felt content with the way things were going. Noah is a lawyer, and we both put our hearts into our careers. Riverview Canyon holds a special place in my heart. There's something about the stunning rock formations and the mystical vibe that pulls me in. Here's where I built my life with Noah. It's been rooted in trust and friendship. For a while, we were adamant about not wanting kids. We felt complete just as a couple. But life likes to throw curveballs, right? At 33, I found out I was pregnant. Talk about a surprise. We weren't exactly aiming for a big family, but as time went on, I sensed that this little one was going to shift our lives in ways we couldn't imagine. When Leo arrived, he turned my world upside down. My heart was flooded with a level of love I had never known. But with that new love came an unexpected fear. I started having bizarre, nightmarish dreams. One night, I found myself in the midst of a horrific car crash. It felt so incredibly real that I woke up drenched in sweat. It was unsettling, to say the least. I tried to brush it off, thinking they were just bad dreams. But every time I stepped into the car, those unsettling feelings rumbled in my stomach. It felt like a warning of some sort. But you know how it is. Life goes on, and we do our best to carry on, right? I never thought those dreams might be more than mere nightmares, or that my whole life could flip upside down in just a split second. You won't believe how a simple drive shifted my entire perspective on life, death, and all that comes between. This story still strikes a chord with me, and every time I think back on it, I sometimes find myself pausing to catch my breath. But I really want to share it because maybe, just maybe, it can change how someone else views their own life. So if you're willing to stick around, I promise it's worth it. Let me take you back to that Tuesday morning, which began like any other. I had dropped Leo off at my mom's since I needed to tackle some work. I remember worrying I was running late to pick him up. Riverview Canyon is typically pretty calm, but it felt like everyone had the same idea that day, flooding the roads all at once. I was sitting in my minivan, fidgeting with impatience, waiting for the light to change. My mind was racing over my endless to-do list. Ever had one of those moments where you're just on autopilot? Yeah, that was me. The radio played softly in the background while I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel. And then, in an instant, everything shifted. I was just lost in thought when suddenly a deafening crash startled me. I glanced over in horror, and there was this massive truck, completely out of control, barreling straight towards me. Honestly, there wasn't even time to scream. The force of the impact was unimaginable. It felt like my body was being tossed around, like a rag doll caught in a storm. Glass shattered and metal crunched, and I was convinced this had to be some kind of nightmare. But the stinging pain that followed was all too real. Then everything went black for what felt like an eternity. I can't tell you how long I lost consciousness. When I finally came to, the first thing that hit me was an eerie silence. The chaos had vanished, replaced by an almost unsettling calm. I thought I had opened my eyes, but it was pitch dark all around. There was nothing frightening about this darkness, though. It felt more like an absence, a peaceful void. I didn't feel any pain or fear at all. In fact, I couldn't feel my body at all. That's when it struck me. I was floating. The pressure of the seatbelt was gone, and it felt like I was weightless, gliding with my thoughts rather than walking or swimming. Out of nowhere, the shadows began to fade, almost like someone was gradually turning up the light. Just then, I spotted my own body, trapped in the wreckage of the car. Ambulance crews rushed around, their shouts filtering through the haze. "She's not breathing! We need to get her out now!" they yelled. It felt unreal, like a scene from a strange film. I wanted to scream that I was fine, that I was up here, but no sound escaped my lips. Then, something unexpected tugged at me, a pull that felt more metaphysical than physical, a kind of beckoning. Looking up, I saw a light that was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. It shimmered invitingly, warm and soft. I couldn't help but be drawn toward it. As I moved closer, an overwhelming sense of peace washed over me. All my concerns, my fears, and life's burdens melted away, leaving only serenity in their wake. The light grew brighter, yet it didn't overwhelm me. Rather, it felt like diving into bliss. Suddenly, I found myself in a new realm. It wasn't quite like a place we know. It resembled a different dimension. Everything around me glowed with vibrant colors, more intense than anything I'd ever seen on Earth. A gentle, harmonious music floated through the air, resonating from everywhere and nowhere all at once. In that moment, I realized I had shed my physical form. I looked at my hands and noticed they were now made of light. Moving felt effortless, almost like floating, guided by my thoughts. As I absorbed this magnificent setting, a presence caught my attention, prompting me to turn. There stood a figure radiating immense love, a being I could only describe as an angel. He didn't resemble the typical winged figures in art. Instead, he was pure light, exuding warmth and strength. It felt tangible. He didn't communicate with words, but somehow conveyed messages directly to my essence. "Welcome, Lyla," was the first thought I received. "Don't be afraid, you're safe here." I yearned to voice a million questions about where I was and what had happened to me, but I couldn't find my voice. I found myself in a bewildering situation, caught between two worlds. Just before I could voice my confusion, a serene being addressed me. "You're undergoing a transformation," it said gently. "Your physical form has endured significant distress, yet your essence lives on and is present here." I was taken aback. A choice? What kind of choice? As those words echoed in my mind, vivid memories flooded my consciousness. It was like watching a fast-paced film of my life. Every pivotal moment, every decision, and how I touched the lives of those around me. Highlights that had slipped my mind, like the small acts of kindness I offered without thought, came rushing back. And then there was Leo, my sweet little Leo, beaming at me. I could picture Noah, his face etched with worry, seated by my hospital bed. My mother's desperate prayers echoed in my heart. Each of these visions struck me deeply. The emotional weight was overwhelming. The angel continued, "You can choose to stay here with us or return to your previous life. Both paths hold significance. It's entirely up to you." I fell silent for a moment, absorbing this revelation. The peace that enveloped me was beyond description. There was a compelling urge to remain, to bask in that warm light forever. But thoughts of Leo and how desperately he needed me brought me back. I remembered all that I still wished to accomplish and the people I aimed to assist. "I want to go back," I finally said, a newfound determination in my voice. The angel radiated approval. "A courageous decision, Lyla," it remarked. "However, before you return, there's something vital for you to see, something that will shift your understanding of existence itself." With that, the journey began. The angel led me through this ethereal realm, and as we progressed, the surroundings morphed into something magnificent. Before us stood a breathtaking temple, its structure resembling glowing crystal, with spires reaching as if to touch the heavens. "This is the Temple of Knowledge," the angel explained. "Souls come here to grasp universal truths." As we entered, I was awestruck. The very walls seemed alive, pulsating with energy and light. Intricate symbols and writings adorned the space, and even though I had never encountered them before, they resonated within me. It felt as though wisdom was seeping directly into my being. As we wandered through the temple corridors, I noticed other souls, some deep in meditation, while others engaged in animated discussions. An incredible sense of peace and wisdom surrounded me, unlike anything I had ever known before. Lyla Hartwell, the angel, caught my attention with her gentle demeanor. "There's someone here who wants to see you," she said. I turned around, and my heart, if that's what I could call it in that moment, felt like it had come to a halt. Standing before me was my grandfather, a figure I'd lost in my childhood, yet recognition came instantly. His smile radiated all the warmth and affection I remembered. "Grandpa," I exclaimed, swiftly moving toward him. It wasn't quite running, more like gliding. When we embraced, it was the most comforting sensation I could imagine. This was no ordinary hug. It felt like our very essences blended for a brief moment. "My dear," he said, his voice just as I recalled, "you've grown so much. I'm so very proud of you." It seemed like time had warped. Our conversation stretched into both an instant and an eternity. He shared stories about his life beyond death, what he had learned, and that he was always watching over me and our family. "Grandpa," I hesitated, my heart longing for this serene place. "Can I stay here with you?" He smiled softly. "You can always stay, sweetie, but consider this. There are people back home who need you. Your journey isn't finished." As I took in the tranquil surroundings, the thought of leaving was enticing. But then I pictured Leo and Noah Sinclair, and all the things I still wished to explore in my life. My grandfather, sensing my turmoil, replied, "It's right to want to go back. There's so much more love for you to give and to receive. Remember, no matter the distance, we are always connected." Another warm hug enveloped me, filled with his love and wisdom. "Go, my dear, live fully, and when your time comes, we'll be here waiting for you," he said, his voice steady. With a hint of tears, perhaps the spiritual form of them, I said my goodbyes. Lyla then guided me away from the temple. "There's one more thing you need to witness before returning," she added, a note of urgency in her tone. As we departed from the Temple of Knowledge, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The bright, welcoming light faded, replaced by a somber, darker setting. It wasn't terrifying, but it certainly had an air of sadness surrounding it. "What is this place?" I asked Lyla, a sense of dread creeping in. "This," she explained, her voice calm and reassuring, "is what many refer to as hell." I was taken aback. Hell? I always pictured hell as a fiery, terrifying place filled with demons, but what I encountered was quite the opposite. Instead of flames, I found a dull, gray landscape. An angel appeared to guide me through this unexpected realm, sensing my bewilderment. "This isn't what most people on Earth think hell is," the angel began. "It's not a realm of endless punishment or suffering. Hell is more of a temporary state, a resting ground for souls who haven't yet awakened to their true, divine selves." As we strolled through this somber space, I noticed shadowy figures meandering around. They didn't seem tormented. They looked more bewildered than anything else. "Most souls here," the angel continued, "are spiritually asleep, 99% of them, in fact. They haven't yet tapped into the divine potential that lies within. Many are ensnared by negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, and the feelings of fear and guilt they've created." This perspective shattered everything I'd previously understood about hell. But I couldn't help but ask, can they leave this place? The angel smiled warmly. "Absolutely. That's the purpose of this realm. It's a chance to learn and grow. When these souls finally connect with their true purpose and understand their divine nature, they will naturally move towards higher states of consciousness." I reflected on all the people back on Earth who lived in fear of hell. If only they knew the truth. Curiosity tugged at me. Why do some souls arrive here while others don't? The angel explained patiently, "It depends on their level of awareness. Some souls, when they depart the physical realm, already recognize their true nature, while others require more time and experiences to achieve this understanding. It's not a matter of judgment, it's simply about the different paths of evolution." We continued our walk, and I noticed a few souls beginning to awaken. It was like a light flickering on within them. "What's happening to those souls?" I asked, intrigued. "They are awakening," replied the angel. "They're starting to recognize their true essence. Soon, they will be ready to continue their spiritual journey." I fell silent for a moment, absorbing this kinder vision of the afterlife. It was so much more compassionate than I'd ever imagined. "Remember this important truth," the angel said gently. "The universe is fundamentally loving and just. There's no eternal damnation, only infinite opportunities for growth and evolution." Relief and gratitude washed over me, dispelling the vision of a punishing deity and a hell filled with perpetual suffering. As I prepared to return to the world, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The angel, who had guided me through this transformative experience, paused for a moment. "Lyla, they said gently. There's something important for you to grasp before you make the transition back. I felt a twinge of worry at their serious tone. What should I be aware of? I inquired, my curiosity piqued. The shift from this realm to the physical one is not going to be simple, the angel explained, their voice soothing yet firm. Your body has undergone profound trauma, and reconnecting with it will present its own challenges. Expect discomfort, both physical and emotional. You've encountered truths that most humans can barely comprehend. Readjusting will take time. I swallowed, a lump forming in my throat, even though I couldn't physically feel anything in that moment. The gravity of the situation weighed upon me. Still, I felt a flicker of resolve. I'm ready, I said, determined to face whatever lay ahead. With a reassuring smile, the angel continued, trust in your strength. Carry the love and insights you've gained here. Remember, you have an important mission awaiting you. At that moment, I felt an irresistible force pulling me back, a rush like diving into a tunnel illuminated with colors and sensations whirling past me. Then, just like that, darkness enveloped me. Suddenly, the first thing that pierced through the shadows was an unbearable sharp pain radiating throughout my entire being. I struggled to open my eyes, but they felt heavy, as though weighed down. Around me, voices buzzed, faint and unclear at first, but gradually sharpening into focus. She's coming back! Call the doctor, echoed through the haze, signaling the start of my return to Riverview Canyon. When I finally opened my eyes, the bright light of the hospital room hit me like a shockwave. It took a moment to adjust, and as I blinked away the brightness, I noticed I was surrounded by concerned faces, nurses and doctors bustling about. And beside me, holding my hand, was Noah Sinclair. His voice trembled with emotion as he called out to me, "Can you hear me?" I wanted to respond, but my throat was parched and raw. All I could manage was a faint nod. The following days, maybe even weeks, I lost track, blurred together into a chaotic mix of tests and doctor appointments. My body had certainly endured a lot from the accident: broken ribs, head injuries, internal damage. The physician remarked it was a miracle I survived. A miracle? If only they truly understood the struggle that lay ahead. Recovering physically was an uphill battle, just as I had been warned. Yet, the hardest part was grappling with the emotional and spiritual consequences of what I'd been through. How could I put into words an experience that felt beyond comprehension? It seemed impossible to convey that depth of feeling. Throughout this ordeal, Lyla Hartwell became my anchor. While he couldn't fully grasp the scope of what had happened, his support was unwavering. Patient and kind, he stood by me, helping me navigate every step of the way. Then there was Leo. The moment I laid eyes on him again in that hospital room remains etched in my mind. As he burst through the door, tears streaming down his cheeks, he called out, "Mommy," and rushed into my embrace. I fought to hold back tears of both pain and joy. I clung to him tightly, enveloped by his warmth and the familiar scent of childhood. In that instant, I knew I had made the right choice in coming back. The allure of the other side couldn't compare to the love I felt for my son. As the days passed and I regained my strength, I began to reflect on everything that had transpired. My memories of those otherworldly experiences were clear yet felt surreal, almost like a dream I couldn't quite grasp. Occasionally, I questioned whether it had genuinely happened or if I was merely imagining it, a byproduct of the trauma. But then, I would remember the overwhelming sensations, the boundless love I'd experienced, and the revelations that came to me, and deep down, I knew it had all been real. More real, perhaps, than anything else I had ever known. Both doctors and nurses commented on my recovery, praising my remarkable determination. "You have incredible willpower," they said. Little did they realize my strength was drawn from something far beyond their understanding. One nurse, Rita, seemed particularly fascinated by my journey. One afternoon, when it was just the two of us, she settled beside my bed and, lowering her voice, asked me about my experiences. "Lyla, did you notice anything unusual while you were, Noah asked me directly. I was a bit taken aback by his question. "Why do you want to know?" I responded, genuinely curious. There was a brief pause before Rita spoke up. "It's just that you seem to have a different light in your eyes. I've seen it in other patients who've had near-death experiences. They come back changed." A smile spread across my face as a wave of gratitude washed over me. Yes, Rita, I've seen some truly amazing things. I've come to realize that death isn't something to fear, it's merely a transition. Her eyes brimmed with tears and she confided, I lost my mother a few months ago. I've been so scared that she's in pain. Taking her hand, I squeezed it gently. Rita, your mother is just fine. She's at peace, evolving, learning, and her love for you is stronger than ever. Rita began to weep softly, repeatedly thanking me. In that touching moment, I understood that maybe part of my journey now was to offer comfort and hope to those burdened by the fear of loss. After spending weeks in the hospital, finally being home felt like a mix of joy and sadness. I was thrilled to reunite with my space and family, yet I missed that deep spiritual connection I'd felt while I was away. Noah had taken the time to prepare everything for my homecoming, transforming our space into a real healing sanctuary. Leo had created cheerful drawings that adorned the walls, and I could feel their love wrapping around me like a cozy blanket. That first night back in my own bed, I stared up at the familiar ceiling, allowing the tears to flow. They came from a mixture of relief at being alive, longing for the beauty of my other experience, gratitude for my family's love, and the realization that my life had fundamentally changed. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a strong sense that my new journey was just beginning. The life I once knew had ended that fateful day in the accident, but a fresh path, full of purpose and meaning, was starting to unfold. The months following my return home were anything but simple. While I was making physical progress, my pain was easing, the bruises were fading, and I could gradually move about more freely. My mind was another story. It was like a storm inside. During the day, I fought to regain a sense of normalcy, juggling caring for Leo and helping around the house as much as my body would allow. Late at night, when the house was silent, those memories would creep back in, relentless and vivid. I'd wake up, heart racing, drenched in sweat, as those surreal moments replayed in my mind, the sensation of hovering above my body. Sometimes, I was lost in dreams about my grandfather's sacred place, filled with the souls I had encountered. Each time I snapped back to reality, I felt a blend of yearning and frustration. The knowledge of what lay beyond was so tantalizing, yet so far from reach. Noah, always observant, picked up on my distress. One night, he found me in the living room, tears streaming down my face at 3 a.m. He settled down beside me and gently asked, Lyla, what's going on? Can you share with me? In that moment, I realized how much we had drifted apart. There was this chasm between us, created by something I had experienced that he couldn't fully grasp. Taking a deep breath, I stammered, Noah, I saw things while I was out of it. Things that changed everything for me. And now, I'm unsure how to function in this reality with all this knowledge. His eyes, a mix of concern and bewilderment, locked onto mine. What do you mean? Can you explain? And so I opened up for the first time, pouring out everything, the light, the being, the temple, my grandfather, and the unsettling truths about the afterlife. The words spilled out like a rushing river, and as I spoke, I could see Noah's reaction shift from surprise to contemplation. When I finally finished, silence fell over us, thick and heavy. It hung there until Noah finally broke it, his voice trembling a bit. Lyla, it's a lot to take in. I'm not sure how to process it all. My heart sank. Naturally, he couldn't truly comprehend what I had gone through. How could he? But then, unexpectedly, Noah took my hand. I might not understand it entirely, he said, but I can see it mattered deeply to you. If it has affected you like this, then it's significant. I'm here for you. Let's figure this out together. I found myself crying in relief in his embrace. It wasn't complete understanding, but it was acceptance, a solid foundation to build on. In the days that followed, I sought help, eventually finding a therapist who specialized in near-death experiences. Our sessions allowed me to delve deeper into what had happened and explore ways to weave those experiences into my daily life. I also began to meditate, yearning to reconnect with that profound peace I'd felt on the other side. At first, it was a challenge, but I knew I had to keep trying. There were days when all I could feel was restlessness, trapped in my thoughts. It was frustrating, trying to navigate life while knowing what I knew. I would look around, feeling utterly out of place, weighed down by worries about bills and the little annoyances that piled up daily. One particularly challenging morning, when I was lost in my thoughts in the kitchen, something unexpected happened that changed my perspective. In came Leo, bursting with enthusiasm, holding up a colorful drawing. "Mommy, look! I made you an angel!" he exclaimed, his face shining with pride. The picture was charmingly whimsical. There I was, with oversized wings and a big smile, surrounded by hearts and stars. At that moment, something within me shifted. Yes, I'd experienced something incredible, and it had reshaped how I viewed everything. But I was still a mother, a wife, a friend. I had a vital role to play in this life. I wrapped my arms around Leo, feeling the warmth of his small body against mine. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I whispered, and he kissed the top of my head. "Thank you for reminding me that I'm your angel here on earth." That day marked a turning point for me. I realized I needed to find a balance. I couldn't let that transcendent experience consume my entire existence. There was still so much life to embrace, love to share, and dreams to pursue. As time went by, my outlook shifted profoundly. My views on what mattered in life transformed completely. The things I once chased, successful careers, social standing, material wealth, began to fade in urgency. Instead, I found myself drawn towards more meaningful pursuits: kindness, connection, and growth, both personal and spiritual. Each interaction and moment became a chance to contribute a little light to the world around me. At work, my priorities changed too. It was no longer about climbing the corporate ladder or impressing important clients. My focus shifted to creating spaces where people felt calm and valued. It was a refreshing change of pace, and I was committed to making the effort, slowly but surely. After my experiences beyond what we know, I found my designs evolving to reflect healing and harmony. I never imagined I would grow so close to Noah Sinclair and Leo. They transformed in my eyes into more than just family. They became fellow travelers on their unique journeys. The conversations I had with Noah were enlightening. We ventured into topics like spirituality, life, and death that we typically avoided. To my surprise, he shifted from a skeptic to someone more open to exploring new ideas. With Leo, I discovered a new way of creating, one that embraced mindfulness and the values of kindness and empathy. It amazed me how naturally he seemed to grasp these concepts, as if they were already a part of him. Gradually, something profound shifted within me too. That unsettling feeling of not belonging anywhere slowly morphed into a sense of purpose. I started to realize that my return to this realm wasn't just about my personal life anymore. It was about sharing insights from my experiences. Initially, I approached it gently, sharing alternative perspectives during casual chats with friends or colleagues whenever death and spirituality arose in conversation. I never intended to impose my beliefs. I merely highlighted hope and comfort in my views. As time passed, I grew more confident. I became involved in support groups for those who had faced near-death experiences or dealt with loss. In those gatherings, I spoke candidly about my journey, the profound love I encountered, and how consciousness endures beyond the physical realm. Witnessing the relief wash over people when I explained that hell isn't a place of everlasting torment, but rather a temporary learning phase, filled me with a sense of fulfillment. I remember a particular instance after one of these meetings when an elderly woman approached me. Her tear-streaked cheeks contrasted with the smile on her face. "Thank you," she said, taking my hands in hers. "I lived in fear that my son, who took his own life, was suffering in hell. Your words liberated me from that fear." In that moment, an overwhelming sense of gratitude surged through me, almost causing me to stagger. I recognized that this was my purpose, to infuse light into darkness and to offer hope amid despair. Of course, the road wasn't entirely smooth. Not everyone was receptive. Some reacted with doubt or even hostility. A few friends drifted away, clearly uncomfortable with my new perspective. But through it all, I felt resolute. There were moments on my spiritual journey when I questioned myself. The burden of responsibility often felt like too much. Yet, I would reflect on the words of the angel, "You are stronger than you realize, Lyla." Those thoughts reignited a fire within me, pushing me to persevere. Over time, I found solace in writing about my experiences. It wasn't with the aim of publishing a bestseller or becoming a spiritual teacher. Rather, it was a way to sort through my thoughts and perhaps leave a legacy for Leo in the future. writing became almost a meditative practice. It allowed me to delve deeper into my experiences and articulate feelings that often seemed beyond description. To my surprise, it also helped me reconnect with fragments of my journey that I had long forgotten or kept buried. One evening, while I was reflecting on the Temple of Knowledge, a memory bubbled up, something the angel had once told me about the universe. It was a simple but profound message. The universe is fundamentally loving and fair. This struck a chord within me, and I started to see that, despite the struggles and hardships we encounter on Earth, there's always a larger purpose at play. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, contributes to our evolution. This newfound perspective didn't magically lighten life's burdens, but it did provide a sense of peace. I began to view each setback not as a punishment or an act of unfairness, but as a stepping stone for growth, a moment to cultivate love and compassion for myself and everyone around me. As I continued this path of self-exploration, I noticed a shift in the people in my life. Noah, who had initially found my journey perplexing, started to connect with my spiritual insights. He began meditating alongside me and even enrolled in a course on Eastern philosophy. Leo, despite his young age, seemed to effortlessly grasp the teachings I shared. He blossomed into an incredibly kind and aware child, always eager to lend a hand. I'll never forget the day he came home from school, excitedly recounting how he comforted a classmate mourning the loss of his grandfather. "Your grandpa is in a beautiful place now, just like you said, Mom," he beamed, pride lighting up his face. Even my parents, who had been skeptical at first, gradually opened their hearts to my new outlook. My mother in particular found solace in my words when her sister passed away. Knowing that her sister was okay and continuing her journey brought her a measure of comfort. One day, while we were at work, I had a heartfelt conversation with Lyla. Through her tears, she shared how much my newfound approach to interior design was touching lives. Clients were telling me how serene they felt in the spaces I created, and one even remarked about a room I designed, claiming it had this incredible healing energy. She had no idea how spot on she was about that. But let me tell you, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were definitely moments when the weight of what I knew felt insurmountable. On those days, the yearning for that overwhelming peace and unconditional love I once sensed on the other side seemed almost too heavy to bear. To cope, I would find solace in meditation, trying to reconnect with those transcendent experiences. It was during one of those quiet sessions that I had a light bulb moment. I finally understood my mission. It wasn't merely about sharing my knowledge, it was equally about my own journey of learning and growth while living here on Earth. Life wasn't just a stepping stone back to that beautiful realm, it was a significant chance to grow and serve others. As I delved deeper, my hunger for knowledge grew. I immersed myself in books about near-death experiences, spirituality, and Eastern philosophies. I attended workshops and retreats, and each new insight seemed to weave into the fabric of my past experiences, enhancing my perspective. Then, out of the blue, Noah Sinclair reached out with an invitation that took me by surprise, a chance to speak at a conference on consciousness and spirituality. My first thought, no way. I'm not a guru, I'm just someone who has gone through something remarkable. But then I remembered the voice of encouragement I had once heard. "You have an important role to play," it said, along with Leo's enthusiastic cheer. "Go on, Mom, tell everyone about heaven." With that in mind, I chose to accept the invitation. I got my act together, organized my thoughts, and practiced my meditation routine to calm my nerves. On the day of the conference, as I stood on stage and gazed out at the crowd, a wave of love and gratitude flooded over me. There were hundreds of souls there, each on their own spiritual quest, looking for answers. Taking a deep breath, I began to share my story, pouring my heart out with honesty. The audience's reaction was beyond anything I could have imagined. People laughed, cried, and even gave me a standing ovation. After the talk, many approached me, expressing how my words had transformed their perspectives, replacing fear and doubt with hope. When I returned home that night, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. In that moment, I understood my true purpose, to act as a bridge between worlds, bringing a bit of that light and love into everyone's lives. That night, as I lay in bed beside Noah Sinclair, who was peacefully sleeping, I couldn't help but reflect on my journey. It felt like a series of remarkable events since the accident, filled with changes and challenges, yet I sensed I was only at the start of something profound. Gazing out the window at the expansive sky above Riverview Canyon, I felt a warm smile emerge. The universe truly is a wondrous enigma, I mused, and here I was, a tiny fragment of it, doing my best to spread a little light and kindness. Drifting into sleep, I was filled with a comforting sense of peace, grateful for each moment of this extraordinary life I'd been given. As months slipped into years, I started to realize that the effects of my experience reached far beyond me and my family. My story began to resonate throughout the community in Riverview Canyon. Known for drawing seekers in search of something deeper, I somehow became a focal point for those curious about the afterlife and the meaning of existence. It was surprising at first when I began receiving invitations to speak at various venues, local churches, holistic centers, even schools. I won't lie, I was a bit nervous about stepping into that role. After all, I had merely gone through an extraordinary event and was still trying to grasp what it all meant. I didn't want to be seen as some sort of spiritual authority figure. But then, I recalled the words of the angel that inspired a sense of purpose in me. It hit me that sharing my experience didn't elevate me above others. Instead, it offered a glimmer of hope and a fresh viewpoint for those searching for answers. During one of these talks at a local church, I spoke about my perspective on hell, not as a place of endless torment, but as a temporary phase of learning. After my talk, a man approached me. I could see tears welling in his eyes. He shared that his son had taken his own life years ago, and he had lived in a haze of guilt and dread, fearing his son was in perpetual suffering. "Your words have set me free," he told me, gripping my hands tightly. "For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe again. Thank you for giving me hope." Those moments struck me deeply. They made me aware of just how powerful a change in perspective could be. I wasn't just recounting my story, I was providing a new lens for others to process life and death. Over time, I took an additional step and began organizing support groups for people who had near-death experiences or had lost someone dear to them. These meetings transformed into a nurturing space where folks could come together, share their narratives, their fears, and what they hoped for. With that, my heart felt fuller than ever as I continued on this journey of connection and healing. With a heart full of appreciation, I step inside my home, eager to embrace another day in this remarkable adventure we call life. It's fascinating to think that a brush with death transformed my perspective, making life profoundly richer, deeper, and far more meaningful than I ever thought possible.